All right, welcome everybody. It's Doug here with the LincolnList.com. This is the week review for the 23rd of March. We're going to take a look at the overall market conditions and a few stock setups to begin our week. As always, if you need help with your trading, you're struggling, you can't seem to get yourself to the next level, you just need some guidance, some help, whatever it may be, visit the LincolnList.com and take a 14-day free trial to the live trade room. We'll pick up where we left off last week and talk a little bit here about the SPY. If you remember from last week, I talked about this pivot here, see if we would be able to hold this 204 area. I thought, well, maybe if we sell off underneath of that, we might start working on some lower areas down towards the 200s. But in the beginning part of the week, the market was kind of in indecision mode, really hinging on what the Fed was going to say on Wednesday. When Wednesday rolls around, the Fed does what the Fed has been doing, and no matter really what wording they decide to add or subtract or use, the end result seems to be the same. The market continues its resiliency, and we get this massive run-up on Wednesday. Now, 2 days later here, on a Friday, it's obvious that the majority of that move has been held up right here. You can see the last 2 days, the market is holding, and I think early on during the week, if we start to move above this little flag top area right here, this 211 spot, I would think we're going to go straight into the 212s and possibly start to make new highs. Now, I know everybody's been kind of waiting for this correction that's supposed to be happening. We've been waiting for years actually for it. And you either have a choice to wait forever or take action each day, and you just have to kind of trade the charts. And right now, it doesn't matter how long the market has gone without a 10% correction or without having a heavy correction. It'll happen when it's ready to happen. The charts right now are suggesting now's not the time for that, so you have to trade accordingly. And I do think if we make that move, we are going to see new highs, or at least an attempt to make that. As far as correcting, you still have to break down some barriers here underneath of this 204. I don't think anything seriously would happen, at least on this chart right now, until you started working your way underneath the 200. That might be the shifting point, but for right now, going into this week, it still looks very, very bullish. Pay attention to that early movement on Monday and see if this thing starts to work its way up to new highs. Maybe it needs to grind out to 215 and to do a blow off top. Who knows? But for the meantime, we're going to remain really bullish on the overall market conditions. So depending on your strategy, as I said, govern yourself accordingly. Now, I don't trade the SPY. I trade stocks. So let's get into talking about a few stock plays that may be setting up well. One is this QUNR. I'm going to pronounce it QUNR. It's QUNR. QUNR for the winner. This thing's had a nice few days. Nice little parabolic chart. One of the few parabolic charts that isn't a biotech. It's very interesting. It's like, wow, I haven't seen one of these in a while. Just kind of joking there a little bit. I have, but it's really been biomania this entire month. Not the hugest chart we've seen. We've certainly seen ones with a lot more range and a lot more parabolicness to them, but this is a pretty good move for what this chart is. You got a nice little stretch here, 29 to 36. RSI's probably getting up there pretty steep. We'll take a look at it. It's 82. It could be a little bit higher. For me, if you're day trading, I don't know, you're probably going to have to go into some of the parabolics intraday like this, where you get these high top parabolics matched with a high RSI and take advantage of those pullbacks. They could be pretty decent for a stock that seems to be lacking a little bit of range. They can have some decent pullbacks. So if we continue to kind of get that movement where you get some parabolics, I think this is a pretty nice chart, or one that we should start considering for a short. You have possibly some overbought conditions here, so I'd like to see at least a move maybe to 37.50, maybe towards 38, and then kind of go in there. Now, one of the big movers that was on Friday was good old CALA. Some of you might remember not too long ago in December, big old ramp up, a former runner, a nice big old parabolic. Because it's in that certain bio space, you kind of have to give it the benefit of the doubt now. I know overall CALA never belonged at 35, and it's just sort of like a Digley or a Lake where it's just going to continue to fade. But there are going to be these moments where it ramps up, and this is really a great trade right now, especially on these type of stocks, is if you take a look at these intraday ramp-ups where they start printing these really steep RSIs, multiple candles, you get these nice pullback. And the longer the run, the bigger the pullback. I mean, this was a nice one here to start the day. And then you get this really nice blow off top late in the session, and it really, really sells off. I'm interested in shorting this stock even more. This was a pretty deep fade. You pulled quickly from 19 to 16. That's significant. If it would have held a little bit more of its gains, I would be thinking that we might start to gap up and possibly run Monday morning. But it's probably going to end up going back and retracing 100% of the steps. I think it's a little too far to chase first thing in the morning, but if you do get a spike, maybe something that leads you up towards the moving average. This is a very rangy stock, so maybe moving up a buck, buck and a half, or one last little push early on Monday would be a nice spot to sink into for a short. Now, if that short doesn't come down and it starts flagging or hassling, don't rule out these bio stocks. I'm sure you know that by now already, but they can get vicious right now. They can surprise you with some of their bullishness. There obviously is earnings coming up pretty soon. I wouldn't trade through that, but I do think if we can kind of get a bounce here a little bit, I'd be interested in shorting some CALA again. Also, AXN, been kind of working around this one for the last few days. It's a cheapie. I usually don't find myself down here in cheap territory that much anymore, but this is a nice chart as well. You got a nice pivot off of the parabolic, and you've made a move here from 223 down to 172. Looks like a extended CR, like a smaller CRMD chart. But you're resting here on the 10 moving average. I think by the end of the week, this thing quite possibly could work its way back down into one. Again, you can't just, maybe a year's passed, 2 years passed, you get the parabolic like this, you smack the 90 RSI on the cheap pharma, and then the thing retraces 100% of its steps. Gene used to do that a lot. Rose G, OPHC, a lot of those stocks would do that. You've seen these moves like this, but then they've snuck around and come back. So you did have your initial para that took you to 250, sells down to 88. Everybody writes it off. It's dead. It's not coming back. And then it makes this huge move all the way back up into that zone. You're very close to mega resistance on that chart, which would be 250, but I don't think this thing comes back over 224, and unless it did, it wouldn't change my opinion, which I think it's a short here with an ultimate target going back down into one even if you're patient. Probably wouldn't happen in the course of a day, but you never know. As with all of them, what you want to look for is you want to look for the spike to short into. You don't want to chase into the hole. If you look at the last couple of trading sessions, you can get into the spike up here, and then it fades. If you start shorting down in here after you see a few reds, you're probably going to end up getting squeezed on, or feel like you're getting squeezed on, and you're going to cover on the first few reds. It does that almost every day, and you see, again, you got a nice little spike. It's almost each and every day starts out with a spike, and then it immediately sells off. So if we're able to get that morning spike on Monday, I think we need to go into this one. If you really want to use some tight risk management, say 238 your stop. For those with a little bit more risk appetite, 265-ish up towards new highs. I would say if some case this was to re-gear over there, you might see an epic squeeze on that. But I think for the short term, at least for now, we're going to head back to one, but I'll let the charts decide. And last, the big winner for me was definitely ESPR last week. And as soon as it started breaking out, it kind of reminded me of one of the things we do as traders or what we should be doing, is we learn from our mistakes. Sometimes the market conditions change and our strategies need to adapt. And I love shorting parabolic stocks. Well, the ones that I had gotten to at the beginning of the month, the Omers, the Legends, a couple of those stocks, those first day moves just never gave up. And I think you've seen that this week too with Kite and Juno. It's like day one, the accumulation cycle, or front side, like some people like to refer to it, it doesn't want to come down. So this time around, at the beginning of the week, we had ESPR, and I just went straight into this thing long, and got to super move. It was great. So after 3 days, I'm going, hey, this is a short now. I want to get into the short. So I started in on the gap up on day number 3 here, and this thing was just punishing. I mean, it just kept ripping and ripping and ripping, and it didn't stop until it got damn near to 119 before we really got to fade. So I mean, I really had to work for my money there on that one. That thing had me sweating there, just like really trying to zero in on some good fade, because the pattern kept changing. Now that I've just kind of bored you with some of my personal trading talk to start to do the session, I still think there's some room. I got this has been pretty significant support where it kind of washed out towards that 110 on Thursday, and there was a few spots, that it's getting into that level. But the thing here is every one of the spikes are lower, so you're getting a lot of lower highs. Like here, you got a nice little lower high, got a lower high here, it's just kind of wedging, excuse me, kind of wedging its way down here today. So it has the bounces are starting to get weaker, but it really needs to clear this support of 110. And I think if that can happen, you could see this thing flush out maybe back down to the recent offering price of 100. There's still a little bit more in my opinion. Now on the flip side, that's your number. If it continues to be stubborn, it continues to hold that, or if it goes under that and just relentlessly bounces right back above it over and over again, I would be led to believe that this thing will throw in even more upside, maybe to 120 before people stop buying it. Having said that, and trading this stock, you cannot, like I mentioned, even with an AXN or anything, you cannot go down in the hole here. You get down in the hole, you're going to have trouble with this. It's a very rangy stock, and sometimes these candles can be $1 to $2 in size, and this is how you get squeezed on. This is how you end up taking great ideas and sabotaging them, is because you get in at the wrong execution price. And if you do that, you often will have a lot of problems. So make sure that you're looking for those paras. I can't stress that enough. As I go through each one of these, I keep making reference to parabolics or spikes. There's where you want to be in if you're interested in shorting. You want to kind of get up into there with some higher levels, work off of some resistance numbers, and then make your shorts and manage your risk. If you wait after a few bars, oftentimes it could be too late, and I think that's the case here with this one. It's been very difficult. Ultimately, having said all of that, 110 is a number. We start losing 110, I think the stock is going to get cooked all the way back down to 100. If it holds, who knows what might end up the week. Could be 120, 130. We'll just have to see. Anyway, that's all I have. A few stocks. Some of them I talked you right through it. Others I just kept rambling on. I was just going on and on about them. But anyway, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're sitting there and you're kind of struggling with your trading, or maybe you already belong to a trade room, if you don't feel like you're getting to where you need to be as a trader, visit thelincolnlist.com. I think it's a completely different experience. All the trades made live in real time on screen, walking you through it. Great camaraderie, excuse me, and a fantastic group and community to be a part of. So take a moment, visit thelincolnlist.com for the 14-day free trial. Other than that, thanks for watching the video. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a great week of trading.